Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review. I'm here today to talk to you about a animated series that seems to have been forgotten in the DC universe. Many people have actually probably never heard of this series, have probably never seen this series. And, it's quite a shame because it's actually pretty good. I'm not sure where you can watch it now. I know DC Universe had it for a while, but that's streaming app has been taken down. I have no idea if HBO Max is showing it. Maybe you can find it on Amazon. I don't know. But yeah, it's a pretty good series. And this series is Green Lantern, the animated series. Now, it only lasted for one season, 26 episodes, and it got canceled due to poor toy sales. And, because of the character designs, they're alright. But it also got canceled because of the bad reception of the live action Green Lantern series that flopped really hard. For many years, I didn't want to watch the Green Lantern live action movie, but I decided last year to finally watch it. And honestly, I don't remember nothing about it. Like, I seriously don't. I wish to God they would have written a better movie, had a better villain, had a better lead because what's his face? God, what's his name? Ryan Reynolds. The dude's not really that great of an actor, to tell you the truth. The only movies I have ever liked him in are the Deadpool movies. Those are the only ones he actually does like a really decent job of acting. That's only because he probably really loves the character so much. But it's just like this dude is not a great actor. I know he has his stands and whatever, but seriously, go back into like his older movies, like Blade Trinity. That's the first one I ever saw him. No, that's the second movie I ever saw him in, and the dude was just terrible in that movie. First movie I saw him in was Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, and he was just so dull and boring. But if you look at his movie resume, all of his movies either get like mixed reviews or they flop. Like seriously, people need to stop hiring this dude. But yeah, the Green Lantern anime series was actually really good. It is not part the DCAU, which stands for the DC Animated Universe, which is was back in the renaissance of cartoon making, all thanks to Bruce Timm and his creative team. As we all know, Batman the Animated Series is by far the best animated cartoon of all time. Next to a few others is the best Batman adaptation. Batman the Animated Series is literally Renaissance gold. Bruce Timm and Paul Dini, they put everything into that show and it paid off big time. Like no other Batman anything has ever came close to that. As we all know, other shows followed, such as Superman, Justice League, Batman Beyond, Static Shock, the Zeta Project. I can't think of anything else at the time, but yeah, it was just that was the whole pinnacle of a universe that so many fans watched and loved for nearly an entire decade. Now, this show is created by Bruce Timm and two other people whose names I cannot pronounce, and I will not even try. Bruce Timm decided to come back to doing animated shows after the DCAU ended, and then he started doing a bunch of animated movies, which I believe was called the DCACU, which stood for DC Animated Cinematic Universe. And those movies were amazing. They were extremely good until they went to the New 52 route, and then things hit a rough patch, and then they ended that, and then now they're doing something new, which the new stuff is not that good. They're not even based off comic books. Most of them aren't. They're doing their own thing. If they are based off comic books, they changed the ending dramatically, which is pissing people off. And the new animation is really weird. It's like Flash cheap animation. and the design is supposed to look like a comic book, which at first, okay, like, it was okay, but now it's starting to get like annoying because it's like just crappy animation. And hopefully the Long Halloween will be a good movie because I really want to buy it on DVD, even though I hate the anime. And then, of course, after this show got canceled, Bruce Timm disappeared again, started doing more movies, then disappeared again. And then when he came back, he kind of lost his mind a little bit with some of the recent stuff he has put out. Like Batman and Harley Quinn, which is like a terrible movie. The Killing Joke was decent. Now, I like the prologue in that, except for the stuff that happens between Batman and Batgirl. That was just unnecessary and gross. But that's Bruce Timm for you, you know. Like, you know, you can go back all the way to the third season of Batman the animated series, and he stated, like, plain and simple, like, fans were not happy with the whole Batman Batgirl relationship thing, but that's why he did it, because it was wrong. But just stop doing it, dude. Like, what happened in Batman Beyond was just like wrong and nasty, and what happened to Nightwing as a result of it, like, just stop, dude. Like, you are the king of DC animation. Like, just stop, because like your like title is getting like diminished big time by all this recent stuff you're doing. Now, even though this anime series is pretty good, and I think it is really good, it does have some flaws. Like, there is a pacing issue, how they spread out their storylines and stuff, and how some people's character development was kind of a little rushed. But you know, they only had one season. But if I had to compare this to any other DC show, I would probably compare it to the Legion of Superheroes Season 2, not so much Season 1. The Legion of Superheroes was actually a pretty good animated series, and most people should really try to check that out. The first season was kind of like Teen Titans Light, so that's why people didn't really like it. They also didn't understand why Superman or Superboy was in it, but he wasn't allowed to be called Superboy at that time, so they just called him Superman, and he had the design of Brandon's Ralph like Superman's costume. So yeah, it's just they weren't allowed to use the term Superboy, so it was just kind of weird. And it wasn't, the first season wasn't really all that great, but the second season was like amazing. It got like super dark. You know, the universe was coming to an end. Storyline started getting better. Character development went off the roof, but because that first season kind of like put a sour taste in people's mouths, they really didn't want to come back for like a second helping of it. Now, the Green Lantern show is, even though it lasted for one season, it should have had two seasons. They should have split the first season into two, because the first season deals with two complete different story arcs. So I felt it would have benefited better if they would have split it in half. But oh well, you know. Now, the first story arc of this series deals with the Red Lanterns. Yes, they finally get some screen time, because normally whenever you see Green Lantern on screen or in the animated movies and stuff, he's always dealing with like Sinestro or one of the like Yellow Lantern, but mostly just Sinestro. And so, you know, that's cool and everything, but it gets a little old. So it was nice to see them adapt and do like other people and other lanterns. And we get to see a lot of lanterns. And we get to see the Star Sapphires, the Blue Lanterns, and Lafreeze of the Orange Lanterns. My problem with the first arc of this season, or this series I should say, is like, okay, even though the first arc is about the Red Lanterns, they spend most of their times creating the origin stories of other lanterns, which is kind of annoying, because it's kind of like, if you was going to do that, why not split this show up into 3 seasons? First season can be an origin of all these lanterns you want to create, and then the second could have been about the Red Lanterns, and then the third could have been about the whole Manhunter, Aya, and the Anti-Monitor, which what it was about. The second part of the first season was about the Manhunters, then it went into the Anti-Monitor, and then it went into Aya trying to destroy the universe. But it's like they only had a few episodes to tell of the whole Red Lantern thing, but they spent the majority of the first half of the series just developing all these other characters. And I get it, it's nice to develop characters and give them some depth, but it's kind of like when you only have a short amount of time, you can't do that much. So it felt a little cramped at times. And it's kind of like I didn't get to know too much about the Red Lanterns, and that would have been really cool. And if they were gonna create other lanterns and show their origins, it would have been nice for them to be part of Hal's team, but they weren't. So yeah, that was just kind of like, in my opinion, just a waste of time, and it just kind of weighed down the first half of that series, which I kind of understand why some people weren't really into that, because like I said, the pacing issue is a huge issue. Let's get into what this show is about. So our primary hero is Hal Jordan. The show actually starts off with a Green Lantern in the outer part of space, and he is responding to a distress signal to a ship, and then he gets ambushed by 2 Red Lanterns and they kill him. So Hal is like on Earth doing his flight thing and doing his superhero thing. He gets called to Oa, and when he gets called to Oa, he is in trouble because he punched out a diplomat. But the diplomat was really bad, so Hal felt justified. So he's getting grilled by the Guardians by that. And then all of a sudden, a ring appears out of the sky because a lantern has died. See, and so because of this, the Green Lanterns have now learned somewhat of a dirty secret, part of a dirty secret that the Guardians have, because they have plenty of them. And that one part, little dirty secret, is that there's an outer sector of space that the Guardians patrol, and that there are lanterns out there. These lanterns have never been seen on Oa. They have very few training. Their rings give them just the gist of what like being a Green Lantern is and how to use their ring, and that's about it. And so when 3 of these lanterns, Solark, Hal, and Kilowog, find out, they're upset because they don't like the idea of these lanterns being out in the outer part of space by themselves with little training, and now they're being ambushed and killed. And many of them are being killed. So the lanterns they're upset about this, but not really, because they see the lanterns as expendable soldiers. And so while Hal is pissed off and the other Guardians don't really seem to care all that much, only Gambit is the only one who really cares. And so he sends Hal on a very special mission to see what's going on the outer part of space and who's killing these Green Lanterns, because nobody knows yet. So he gives Hal an experimental ship that can go at high speeds, and this ship has an onboard computer and AI intelligence, which is later renamed Aya because Hal mispronounced her name or something like that, or she interprets it wrong and decides to pick Aya. Anyway, he recruits Kilowog, and pretty much it's just him, Kilowog, and Aya, the main stars of this show for now. So they go out there, they start doing some investigating, they start seeing more rings show up, and they realize the main baddie are these Red Lanterns. And these Red Lanterns want nothing more but to destroy Oa and the Guardians and every Green Lantern that they see, because something happened. What happened was the Manhunters. The Guardians sent out the Manhunter the Manhunter robots many centuries ago. They were like the first of the Green Lantern Corps, and they were there to patrol space and do injustice, stuff like that. Well, because they lack emotion and understanding, pretty much they deemed all life corrupt to the point where they had to destroy it, and that's what they did on the outer parts of the sector. Because of this, many of the Red Lantern homes were destroyed, and now they're pissed off. So Atrocitus, he had his home destroyed, and he decides to create the Red Lantern crop. And he has tons and tons of soldiers, However, Atrocitus is very I can't even talk. He manipulates tons of people to become Red Lanterns. One of those people is Razor. So Razor is one of the people that also killed one of the Green Lanterns. And he has done a lot of bad stuff over time. However, Razor, unlike many other Red Lanterns, even though his ring is filled by hate, he still has a conscience and he still feels a little guilty. So much that Atrocitus does not like this because he questions Razor's loyalty. Anyways, when they're about to destroy an inhabited planet, Hal and Kilowog are trying their best to stop the Red Lanterns and save the people. But Atrocitus sends out this giant nuke of a bomb, and he makes Razor set it off because he wants to prove his loyalty. He knows that by doing this, Razor will be killed, but he doesn't care. So, Hal and Razor are fighting. Kilowog is trying to do his best to save the people. And then somehow Hal convinces Razor what he's doing is wrong because this bomb is going to kill everybody and blah, blah, stuff like that. So the bomb goes off and Razor gets hurt. Kilowog ends up saving the people and Razor feels upset. So they take him as their prisoner. After that, they send him to the Spiders Guild prison, where it's supposed to be this really good prison and to rehabilitate people. However, one of the prisoners escapes and goes on the Interceptor, which is the ship. He tells them they torture their prisoners and make them see nightmares and all this other stuff. So Hal feels guilty and he goes back to save them. Kilowog doesn't think that's such a great idea and blah blah stuff like that. So in a way, they rescue him. And while inside, they're fighting off the Spider Guards, and Aya, she tries to free Razor. Now, Aya is still the nav computer on the Interceptor, and so she's an artificial intelligence, very high tech. So she goes inside the little device that's torturing Razor, and he's having a nightmare, and she takes the form of his dead wife, Alana. And so this snaps him out of it. He's kind of upset and all this other stuff, but because he feels he should be punished for all the bad stuff he's did. But anyway, he helps the two Green Lanterns out and they escape that place. Now this is the part that kind of upsets me a little. Razor's redemption arc happened way too fast. It's kind of like we just got to know this dude. We know he's evil, and all of a sudden he's a dude with a conscience, and then all of a sudden he then joins Hal and Kilowog, and it's just kind of like that fast. They just took him in that fast, and it's just so it felt kind of rushed. And it doesn't really feel that earned. And it's kind of like, how can they trust this dude? But, whatever they do. So anyways, they go on another mission that's unrelated to the Red Lanterns, and they decide to save the ship and the passengers on board, which is a bunch of eggs, and the pilot. Well, something happens and they're about to get sucked into a black hole and the ship can't pull them out. So they're trying to restart the engines to get the ship on out of the black hole because it's stuck in the gravity well. They're getting to the point where they're all about to die, and Aya decides she's going to upload herself into the mechanical parts of the ship. And so she's trying to save them. And she ends up doing. But here's the thing about Aya. She feels that since she's so smart and she has a conscience, like an artificial intelligent conscience, she feels that, since she helps the boys out and she has all this wherewithal and all this knowledge, she should be a Green Lantern. And they're all like, no, you're the nav computer, that's what you are. But she feels that, but she's more than that. So she decides to assemble a body out of those alien computer parts. And so she assembles a body, and her body looks very Bruce Timmish because she's basically half naked and stuff like that. And so she uses the green aura from the ship to construct the rest of her body. And she takes on the face of Razor's dead wife, which kind of pisses him off. But he just, he just like, whatever. Because the ship is powered by its own central battery and part of the green energy. And Aya taps into this green energy and stuff. So after that, we get one mission after another because they're trying to find the other Green Lanterns of their area. And they end up going to this one planet where they find like a power ring. And they find a dude that has it, a lantern, and of course they never met. And then he ends up dying on that planet. And so the power ring ends up going missing. So they try to find it, they try to find out who killed them, and it turns out it's this one famous Green Lantern. She is the queen of that planet. And I cannot pronounce her name whatsoever, so I'll just show a picture. But pretty much it's her brother that killed the dude. I think her name is Olanda or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, she's the queen, princess, whatever lady, and her brother wants to be in power. He wants to be the king. He wants to be the Green Lantern. So they end up tricking him. And, she ends up becoming the new Green Lantern because the ring went to her and she hid it. So then later, next thing you know, Atrocitus gives him a red ring because of all his anger. Then we get to see like the origin stories of another Green Lantern, which is Mogo. And then we get to see also in that same episode the formation, or later on in the episode, I guess, or maybe the same episode, I don't know, I can't remember. No, wait. Yeah, a couple episodes later, we get to see the formation of the first Blue Lantern, Saint Walker. And so he's living on Mogo's planet, because I think his ship like crash landed there or something like that. And then Atrocitus, he gets like one of the people there a red lantern ring. So we get to see the formation of that. We get to see the formation of the Blue Lantern ring and the power of hope. And then the Green Lanterns realize that the blue energy boosts like their powers. And they're not sure why, but we find out later in the second half of the series. So after a couple of missions, it turns out Aya is starting to crush on Razor, and he slowly starts to crush on her. But he sees her as nothing more but a machine, but he does have feelings for her. And because, she ends up saving his life a lot, and her face looks so familiar to him, like his dead wife, so it's kind of like, they're feeling like the vibes of each other, And more as this is going on, she is starting to become more sentient. She's starting to develop more feelings and emotions, and she's starting to understand more about life, but she wants to understand more about love, mostly. Then we get an episode about the Star Sapphires, and they end up bringing both Kilowog and Carol to their planet and then give them rings and stuff. So we have a whole episode about that and about love, and Aya's feelings are starting to grow a little bit more. And then, but when Carol takes on the ring, she starts to forget who she is, and then she starts to become like all like power crazy and stuff. And because, her and Hal are like having a rocky relationship because he's never there, because he's always doing the Green Lantern thing, and she didn't know that. And so that's one thing that kind of does bug me about this whole first half, is just they're doing the origin stories of like so many other lanterns, and they're forgetting about the whole story of the Red Lanterns until they do start to remember, and then they start to cram that all in. So then it turns out that Atrocitus is still building his army, and we find out, like I said, the Manhunters end up like killing like so many people and destroying so many homeworlds, but he's manipulating people into becoming Red Lanterns, like Razor. It turns out Razor joined the militia of his planet, and then Atrocitus, feeling that anger and rage, needed it to be amplified. So he ends up killing Razor's wife, Alana. And then he ends up giving Razor a ring in a flashback episode. When Razor finds this out, he is furious, and so, he wants nothing but revenge. They later find out the Red Lantern's secret. They want to use this wormhole type thing that a person has the kind of like the coordinates of activating it or whatever. And so They need to get there into Oa before the Red Lanterns do. Hal tries his best to stop it, but fails, and the Red Lanterns show up. So then, next thing you know, it's this huge battle. But this huge battle really isn't all that great. It's mostly just Kilowog fighting off a bunch of Red Lanterns while Hal is trying to do the hero thing and get the people of all the Lanterns of Oa to unite and all this other stuff. And he's trying to explain to all the Red Lanterns how Atrocitus has lied to them and stuff. So we see Kilowog, doing his best to fight everybody off, but he ends up getting his butt kicked. And then next thing you know, the Blue Lantern shows up, gives them a huge power boost, and then next thing you know, they're kicking butt all over the place, and Mogo shows up, and he's just blasting left and right. My only problem with all this is just that it was lackluster. It was all this build-up, and the final battle wasn't even all that impressive. The way that these Green Lanterns use their rings is just kind of lame. They just shoot energy blasts for the most part. Every now and then you'll see a construct. Hal very rarely uses constructs in this. Also Kilowog just pretty much uses a hammer or a giant blaster gun, and it's kind of underwhelming, especially how you see their rings are used in the 2 animated movies, and that they were used so amazingly, and they used their blaster power just in so many different degrees, and and to protect themselves they use the shield bubble, which they rarely use in this, which is kind of weird. They just use the body shield, and it's just so it just felt like the final battle wasn't really all that amazing, and there wasn't even that many Green Lanterns there to help them out. So it was just kind of it just kind of fizzled, and it just wasn't all that impressive. But like I said before, Hal ends up telling the Red Lanterns what Atrocitus did, and then Atrocitus, and he gives them this huge talk about how the Lanterns, they didn't mean to destroy their homeworld and this and that. So he decides to give up, which was kind of lame, and that's that. Now the second half of this series seems totally different from the first. It's a whole lot better. It's a whole lot better written, and it's somewhat of a disconnect from a little bit of the first. Because now we stop seeing the origin stories of all these other people, and we actually start to see more Green Lanterns from Oa. People like Chip, who's just a new recruit and stuff. But that's really the only real new one we see. We see these other two, but I don't know their names. It's the one that looks like a cucumber, and the other one looks kind of like an octopus. And then we get to see Guy Gardner in the second half of this series, because he's the new Lantern of Earth, because Hal's been pushed up to Honor Guard. And it's kind of cool to see Guy Gardner. I was hoping to see John Stewart, but we don't never see John Stewart in this. We get a name drop, and Hal doesn't like him either, because he's taking care of Earth after Guy no longer takes care of Earth and is a Honor Guard and all this other stuff. But Guy is pretty much the only Earthling that the Guardians love, and they love him way more than Hal. Ali Apsa, is that his name? Yeah. What's his name? Ali Apsa. He loves Guy so much, and he hates Hal. It's so funny. But yeah, we also get to see more of the Blue Lanterns and the Orange Lanterns and the Star Sapphires again, and we see a little bit of the Red Lanterns, but not much, because their story arc is pretty much over. But this new story arc takes place with the whole Manhunter thing. So for some unknown reason, the Manhunters have now activated themselves. And they are starting to wreak havoc on every sector of space that they're in, because they think all emotion is bad and therefore organics are bad, and so they want to destroy everything. Now, the Green Lanterns don't know anything about the Manhunters. See, when Atrocitus said that his planet got destroyed, he didn't say by who. He just knows that the Green Lanterns did it. Not Green Lanterns, but the Guardians did it. And so now the Guardians must explain who these Manhunters are and how this is one of their greatest mistakes, and now Hal Jordan has to be once again the one to stop it. when this starts off, we don't see Razor like nowhere to be found. It takes about 2 episodes for him to show up. So with these whole Manhunter things, Hal has once again assembled a team of Kilowog, and that's it. But Tomar-Re helps him out a little bit. Now the Interceptor and Aya is about to be dissected by Scar. Hal doesn't understand why, so he breaks Aya out, him and Kilowog, and then they take the Interceptor and steal it, which pisses off the Guardians big time. And we also get to see a nice little fight between Hal and Chip whoops his butt. So it's kind of unusual to see a Guardian be so upset and want to dissect and disassemble Aya and want to, like, you know, see how she works. But we get to see exactly why that is. And we also get to see Scar just be pissed off. Now, this is before Scar has a scar. And they do the origin story of how she gets that. Just similar to the Commodus by the Anti-Monitor. So Hal is investigating this whole Manhunter thing, because they're popping up left and right. Him and Kilowog have a hard time trying to stop them because they're so tough. But pretty much Kilowog just takes care of them with the old hammer routine. But as time progresses, they're getting stronger and stronger. During this revelation, they go to a planet where they find Saint Walker. And they find Razor. Saint Walker is trying to do his best to, like, you know, calm down Razor and his, like, emotions, but it's really not working out all that well. So now Razor has rejoined the group, and it made Aya sad at first when she found out Razor wasn't on Oa, but then of course she's happy now that he's back. So we slowly get to see the romance between those two when they start, like, liking each other. Now, one thing that's interesting is that Saint Walker now has another lantern with him. Also, Ganfin has now become the guardian of the Blue Lanterns. And because something happened earlier where Abba Ali Apsa was really pissed at him, and so were the rest of the Guardians. I think he betrayed them to help out Hal and the rest of them. And so they banished him from, like, Oa. And so when they banished him, he went to the planet that has, like, the two Blue Lanterns and stuff, and he's starting out the Blue Lantern crop. And so he decides to turn on the blue battery, blue energy. I can't talk. He decides to turn on the blue battery. When he does this, all of the Green Lanterns, like, it spreads throughout the entire, like, sector space, and it, like, charges up all the Green Lanterns. However, the Manhunters are made of that same green energy. And so it powers them up and reactivates a whole lot more. And so they have a whole lot of trouble on their hands, where he has to resort and turn off the battery. He hopes one day to reactivate it, but until the whole Manhunter thing is done, then he can't. Now, like I said before, Guy is the guardian of Earth now, and so that, or the Lantern of Earth, and so that pisses off Hal. They get into a huge scuffle. Then they fight off a Manhunter. And then, you know, they decided, oh, you know, you're not so bad after all. And they start to bond a little bit. But then, of course, Guy is Guy. And that whole infamous comic book scene where Batman punches him is redone with Hal punching him. So that's a nice little nod. So they later on find out who's been reactivating all the Manhunters, and it's none other than the Anti-Monitor. And so they go into the whole backstory of him. And so this whole Anti-Monitor is, like, really bad, and they're trying to stop him. First, let me just say this Anti-Monitor is so much better than the one we got in the Arrowverse. Because the one in the Arrowverse was just a Thanos ripoff. So, you know, the Anti-Monitor is doing his whole thing of wanting to destroy, like, lives. The Anti-Monitor proves to be way too much for Kilowog and Hal. And in one huge fight, it ended up blasting both him and Hal into another dimension. And then we get this really interesting episode that's completely left field. And it's kind of, I forgot what comic book this is based off of, but it's an Elseworld story about the whole Steam universe, where kind of like people, like, back in them old days of, like, steam engines and mechanical stuff, and we get this really interesting episode of the Steam Green Lantern of that universe. And we find out that the Anti-Monitor is actually from there, and he struck a deal with this one guy that helped him, I think, like cross into like another dimension or something like that, but ends up betraying him or whatever, because when he does that, he ends up sucking up all the life from that star of their universe. So after a huge scuffle and a misunderstanding here and there, Hal helps like the Steam Green Lantern like try to like, you know, save his universe, and they figure out that they can just send the entire like planet into Hal's universe. So now they live there. But however, nothing becomes of that after that. So that was kind of like pointless. So then we get a Red Lantern episode where they have a new leader, and you know, they're trying to like not necessarily redeem themselves, but they stop trying to destroy the universe and stop trying to destroy the Green Lanterns. And next thing you know, the Manhunters start showing up on that planet, and Scar is all like, no matter what, you know, the Green Lantern, the Red Lanterns can't see that Manhunter, stop it at all costs. Of course, Hal ends up failing, like he does a lot in this series. And so, you know, this kind of like upsets the whole like, you know, Red Lanterns and stuff. And then Scar joins the ship, and then something happens. I can't quite remember what, but they get into an episode where Aya gets upset, and because everybody on the ship starts to see the Manhunters as like dumb robots, and she doesn't like that. And then she wants to better the Manhunters' lives. She is an artificial intelligence, and she feels that the Manhunters can improve their programming and stop trying to destroy the world. But they're all like, no, you know, we are programmed to do this, and we have to snuff out all emotions and this and that. And so then they get to a scene where Aya and Razor are having an argument. Pretty much, he tells her that he does not love her and all this other stuff, and they're upset because she's nothing but a machine and she can't feel. This upsets her, and all she can feel is this emotional pain of his rejection. So Hal tells her, you know, you gotta snap out of it. We're in the middle of a fight. You can't be dealing with this right now. She gets so upset, she turns off all her like higher functioning emotions, and then she like destroys the Anti-Monitor. She like drives right into his head. But then she decides she's gonna integrate into his technology because she now hates emotions, and she now sees what the Manhunter sees, that emotions suck. So then she wants to destroy the entire universe of emotions. So she integrates with the Anti-Monitor, gets infused by his power, and now she is beyond corrupt. And now she is bent on destroying all life and emotions. In this, we see that Scar, okay, the thing about the Guardians in this series is that they don't have no powers. In this series, they said to have like, shut off their powers because they are way too powerful and they feel power corrupts. But Scar is the only one who kept her powers and hid them from the rest of the other Guardians. And so, we get an episode where her and Aya, the Anti-Monitor, are like facing off against one another, and next thing you know, Scar ends up getting vaporized in this whole thing. And let's put a pin in that for later. So the Guardians are like, how, you know, y'all have to stop the Anti-Monitor, Aya, Entity, and all this other stuff. Razor doesn't want to do that. Hal and them doesn't want to do that because they're friends with Aya. But the Guardians are like, look, you have no choice. You have to destroy her, blah, blah, blah. This is kind of like y'all fault for doing this because she was supposed to get dismantled. And, you know, he unleashed this horror onto the universe. And so they're trying their extreme best to find out what Aya is doing, why she's doing all this, and trying to stop her. But they can't. And so at one point, Razor tells him of like oh wait, before I get into this, let me get into Sinestro. Sinestro actually does appear in this, but he's a Green Lantern, and he doesn't have a yellow power or nothing like that, because in the first half of this series they do see these yellow rocks. these gem rocks, which of course is the yellow element, and they see that they have no power against that. And so, in this episode, Sinestro has a prisoner, and then he takes him back to the ship. The prisoner has telepathy. He bounces around from person to person, turning them evil. And so Sinestro finds out a clever way to get rid of him, but this is before Aya turned evil. And so it was a nice little Sinestro episode where we think he's evil, but he's not. He's just very blunt and forceful and stuff. It would have been nice to see Sinestro turn evil. So Razor tells him the story of how he heard of like the orange power and the orange lanterns, and he thinks the orange power battery might be a way to stop Aya. So they go to that planet, they meet LaFreeze. Hal ends up getting possessed by the the orange battery. And then we see a really cool nod to when Hal turned evil in the comic books. When he shows up, when he lifts up his hands and he sees, and there's like 10 power rings on his hands. And instead of green power lantern rings, they're orange power lantern rings. And it's just a nice little nod to like the comic book of when he did that. Anyway, they rescue him. They see that the orange power is too much for them because it's nothing but greed. And so they try to find other ways to stop Aya. And so they see that Aya has now been like destroying star systems. And it's getting to the point where she's destroying all these planets. And it's like they know now they have to stop her. But of course, Razor doesn't want to because he loves her and stuff. And his anger is like fueling him, so like he doesn't want nobody to harm her. They go back to Oa and Hal trying to find a way to stop Aya, so he asks the Guardians, plain and simple, since y'all created him and y'all having blueprints of how to like shut off, and they're all like, oh well, the scientist who created Aya is now dead because Hal let her die, and that was Scar. And so Hal's all like, well, she has to have like, some blueprints or something somewhere. And they all like, they searched her room, but they couldn't find nothing. And so Hal's like, you need to search harder. And they all like, no, they tell him to leave. And so Hal decides to sneak into Scar's room. And then he ends up finding a hidden like room, a laboratory where all this like amazing stuff is at. And they're trying to find something on Aya. But then this other Guardian shows up. I forget her name. It starts with an S. She's nice and friendly, and she helps them out. And then they figure out that, oh, there's like a star chart. So what's on this planet? So next thing you know, they leave because Appa shows up pissed that somebody is in the room of like the former scientists and stuff, and he finds the nice Guardian. So they go to that planet, and there they find Scar still alive, and they don't know how. And now she has that huge scar on her face because, she fought the Anti-Monitor. And actually, tell you the truth, I don't think it was Aya part of the Anti-Monitor that scarred. Maybe it was just the Anti-Monitor himself. I think I'm getting that part confused. I do know it was the Anti-Monitor's body that vaporized, supposedly, Scar. But I don't know if Aya was part of it or not. Anyways, she tells how, she knew that he will find her eventually, that he will find this planet because he's like really smart and determined and all this other crap. And then she tells the big story of how everything came to be with Aya. It turned out after centuries ago, after the Manhunters were put down, she decided to create the ultimate like artificial intelligence, something that the Guardians didn't know nothing about. And so she worked hard left and right trying to get all the pieces right, but she needed something. She needed like that spark that could activate this intelligence because she used some of the most high-tech equipment she could find. So she decided to steal some of the energy from the central power battery because she reveals to them that there is a living entity inside the power battery. Now we all know that's Ion from the comic books, but they don't refer to him by name. And so Hal's all like, well, if it is like a living creature within the battery, then therefore, and you use that energy on Aya, therefore Aya is a living being. Like, she has a real consciousness and stuff. And so that activated Aya, and everything turned out to be fine until Aya started to exceed her programming. When Scar walked into the room, she saw Aya trying to download information on the entire universe because Aya wanted to know more. But Scar didn't want her to know more. Scar only designed her for a specific thing, and she did not like the idea of Aya going behind her back. So she tried to shut. So then Aya found out that Scar still has all of her powers, her guardian powers, and then shut them off. And she wants to know why, did she lie to the guardians about that. So Scar is all like, screw you, I'm gonna shut you off. But Aya's all like, well, screw you back, because nobody's gonna shut me off. And then she ends up wiping Aya's entire memory. And of course, those memories slowly start to like a little bit kind of resurface a little bit, but not really. Aya doesn't remember none of this, but Aya still has that thirst for curiosity, and that's what that we see in the series. And so Scar is all like, we can build a weapon that can stop Aya. She lies to them, of course. Though she tells them that it's gonna be more like a tranquilizer dart, but it's more like a nuke, and they use the yellow element from that one planet as like the missile like warhead and stuff. So they send Razor in to talk to Aya, and it starts to work just a tiny bit. And he was getting ready to tell her about Ion, how she's part of a living entity and stuff. But before they can do that, the Guardian Scar Lady gets impulsive and she fires the missile. It blasts into Aya, but it does not destroy her. Aya is pissed. Those two fight, and then no, they don't fight. They don't fight, and then Scar is kind of like, and Hal's all like, we all need to get out of here because that blast didn't destroy Aya, and she's like, on the contrary, I need to get out of here, and she teleports out of there. She is bad, man. Like, I'm telling you. So Hal decides one last ditch effort to buy them some time and get Razor on out of there. They're gonna set the ship into warp and then just fly it into Aya. And so they do that. They leave, and then of course, Razor's still pissed off, blah 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 blah, and all the other crap. So as they're trying to get back to Oa, Appa calls them and tells them to head to this one planet because there are tons of manhunters trying to go there. Also, what's strange is that Hal is getting a call from somebody, but it's like a lot of static. He thinks it's Appa, but it's not. When they head to the planet, they see tons of Green Lanterns there and tons of manhunters. It's all led by Guy, and Guy's doing a terrible job of it. And so Guy and them are getting their butts kicked, and he's kind of getting scared, and Hal's all like, somebody on that planet is calling him. We need to get around the manhunters somehow. And Guy doesn't want to hear none of it. So him, Kilowog, and Razor, they find a way to get in there. And when they do, they are pursued by manhunters, and then they're able to fight them off. And then they finally find out who's calling them. It's the Anti-Monitor. Apparently, Aya didn't destroy him. When she blasted into him, it just severed his head, and that's where his consciousness is at. So then he drifted to that planet, integrated with his technology, and he tells Hal Jordan he wants their help. He wants them to be their bodyguard because Aya is coming for him because he has this type of temporal energy that can go back in time. So they agree, but they don't really want to. But it's kind of like, so then Aya shows up. The Anti-Monitor is getting his butt kicked by her, and he's all like, oh, I'll strike a deal with you. But she's not having it, and she rips his head apart. And then she takes the little temporal thingy. So Hal has failed again. And now they know what Aya's big plan is. She's planning on going back in time to, I think it's called the Hand of Time, to rewrite history, to make it to where organics never existed, and it will instead be replaced by artificial androids and stuff. And so in the last battle, it's this huge blowout. Pretty much this is what kind of disappoints me. It's a bit better than the last major bit battle, but it still kind of fizzles out a little bit. However, this time we get the inclusion of all the Green Lanterns, so that's really cool. Which is something they should have done in the first half of this series, but would it have been more effective if they would have had all the lanterns? They could have called in the Red Lanterns, the two blue lanterns, the Star Sapphires. And, it just would have been cool, because what was the point in showing all those lanterns in the series if they wasn't going to help out in the big battle, It was just really pointless and a waste of time. And so, but still, it's just the Green Lanterns. They fighting Aya and the Manhunters, and the Manhunters now sound like Aya for some reason. So they're trying to figure out a way of getting inside and stopping Aya. Aya takes Hal prisoner because she, well, first, actually, tell you the truth, Hal figures out a way to stop Aya, but nobody wants to listen to him, so he goes in by himself, and then she ends up taking him prisoner, because she wants him to witness the end of, like, all life and see everything be replaced by androids. He is able to call Kilowog and Razor, and he lies to them. He tells them he needs Razor. Kilowog thinks it's because the red energy disrupts the green energy, which it does, but they can bypass that. So they send him in. See, Hal used Razor as bait. When Hal looked at the star chart of all the places that Aya destroyed, he realized that all those star systems, all those planets had no life on it. So he tells Aya, you claim, you want to get rid of all organics and all emotion, but yet you're only destroying star systems that are completely empty, because she has not killed nobody yet. And, he's trying to talk to her, and he's kind of getting to her a little bit, but not really. And it's because, she really doesn't want to destroy deep down inside all life, but she feels she has to because she's heartbroken. And so when he sends Razor in, Razor thinks he's there to kill her. So he hesitates a little bit, but then he charges. She turns around and she blasts him, killing him and stuff. So he's dying. That was the bait part. See, that caused her to snap out of it and stop trying to destroy all life. Hal used Razor as bait because he knew if Aya was to hurt him, then she would snap on out of it, which she does. So she stops the whole time travel thing and the whole, destroying all life. So she stops that. But the problem is the Manhunters. See, she uploaded her program into each and every one of them. So now they're like mini versions of her. And they're going to finish what she started. So at some point, they're going to try to distinguish all of life. So she decides she will create a computer virus to send out to all the Aya programs. And of course, she is an Aya program, so she destroys herself in the process. Razor tells her don't do it, but she tells him that it's already been. She tells him that it's already been done. She slowly dies in his arms. He's heartbroken, and it's a really sad, touching moment. And so all the Manhunters have been stopped. Now everybody's celebrating on Oa, which is kind of weird because they didn't show Mogo at all in this second half. He would have been like really helpful and stuff, but they don't. Anyway, so everybody's celebrating. Hal and Kilowog, they're talking to Razor. Razor's upset. He doesn't believe that Aya is dead. He said Aya is too resourceful just to destroy herself like that. And somewhere out there, she must be living. She must have uploaded herself somewhere. So it's like, they tell him, look, man, we'll help you and stuff. But he's like, no, this is something I need to do on my own. And they tell him, you ever need help, let us know. So then in the last few scenes, we see Razor fly off into space looking for Aya, and then we see a blue lantern rain just float up, and then it starts chasing after Razor because now his anger has subsided and now he has hope in his heart. So he's gonna be a future Blue Lantern, and it ends. And all in all, it's a great show. Like I said, it's a really good show. Like, Razor was designed to be the character that can do whatever they want to, so it won't piss off fans. Because every time Bruce Timm plays around with Green Lanterns, fans get pissed. And it is the truth. But even though this is a good series, like I said before, it does have some slight flaws. Like, the bottle episodes, filler episodes, it's like they were pointless. It's like keep to the story narrative, don't go off script. And they went off script a couple of times, like in that one Babel episode in the second half of the first season, where all the Lanterns' power battery rings are like, depleted and they can't talk to each other. So they have to defeat the bad guys on that planet, all while talking in their own native tongue. And it was just a really pointless episode. It was a filler episode. And so it's kind of like this show does not need filler. They should have just got to the point. Maybe people would have liked it a whole lot better if they just would have gotten to like the point, Also, some of the action scenes could have been a little bit better. I was surprised because the animators got really lazy and just started giving the same constructs to like the same people. Like when they do like the shields, it was always the same shield. It was always the same energy blast. Nobody got creative like they did in the movies. So that kind of sucks. The animation is pretty good. And it's a whole lot better than like Jimmy Neutron. Like they come a long way since Jimmy Neutron in action, man, on the mouth movements and stuff. However, everybody's design really cool, except for Hal himself. He looks like somebody off The Incredibles. And it just looks weird, But one thing I do like the second half of the first season. It was a whole lot better than the first half. My only problem with the second half is that the whole Aya wanting to destroy life, that was pretty much ripped right from the second season of the Legion of Superheroes. In that, Brainiac 5 gets corrupted by the original Brainiac program, and because of that, he starts digitizing all of life and destroying it. And so it was literally just ripped, like just from that, So that's one reason why I compared them two series together. Now, while Razor hasn't shown up in none of any like future installments, Aya actually has. I forgot what she showed up in. I think it was like, oh, that's what it was. It was Justice League Action, which is a show I could not get into at all. I hate that series. But she shows up in that. But all in all, like I said, pretty good show. Also has a great voice cast. Josh Keaton, who is best known for Spectacular Spider-Man, he's Hal. Kevin Michael Richardson, he is Kilowog. Grey Lisley, she is Aya, and Jason Spisak is Razor. So yeah, like y'all should really check it out if y'all can find it somewhere. It's a really good show. Alrighty, well I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.